Pepe, one of the most photographed and painted and written about and dreamed about and adored cities in the world, and one of my favorite places. But there's one Disney and Pixar film that gave us a whole new appreciation of France. And I think you know the one that I'm talking about. No, not Monsters, Inc. Yes, it's Ratatouille. In the 2007 film, Chef Remy finds himself at Cousteau's, the finest restaurant in Paris, named for the culinary hero of his, Chef Auguste Cousteau. Now, there were many real-world inspirations for Chef Cousteau, and one of them was Chef Paul Bocuse, an internationally acclaimed restaurateur. Now, you might recognize Monsieur Paul from a handful of popular French restaurants in the United States, including Chef Stefan's, an Epcot staple since opening day. Now, there's Chef Bocuse on the right, you can see, and then you see the resemblance to Cousteau? He looks just like him. Next to Bocuse are fellow chefs Gaston Lenotre and Roger Verger, who together would introduce authentic French cuisine at Epcot. Now today, Paul Bocuse's son, Chef Jérôme Bocuse, continues the family tradition, overseeing the restaurants of the France Pavilion. And that includes a restaurant called Monsieur Paul, which is upstairs above Chef Stefan's. And it features some gourmet food and some lovely mementos of the Bocuse family honors. Now downstairs, the France Pavilion is also home to the Palais du Cinéma, which features one of the longest running films in Disney Parks history, Impressions de France. Fantastic film. In 2017, the film earned the Guinness record for the longest running daily screening of a film in the same theater. And that was in 2017. That was, quite a while ago. It's still running strong. So next time you visit, be sure to check out the lobby gallery of the theater. And there are some costumes on display there from the collections of the Walt Disney Archives. Very happy to have that exhibit there. And for the main film presentation, The Impressions de France was the very first motion picture to have its soundtrack recorded digitally. Did you know that? And then it was taken through every step of the digital mixing and editing process. And many of the real-world sites and landmarks that would later be featured in Impressions de France had inspired Walt Disney, who would take many creative cues from Europe and local storytelling, including French versions of popular fairy tales. Now, depending on who you ask, the origin of the Cinderella story goes back to either 1st century China or Greece. But our 1950 animated feature was based on the story of Charles Perrault, who wrote his version in 1697, and it was his interpretation of that fairy tale. Perrault's version included elements like the fairy godmother, the pumpkin carriage, and glass slippers. And when it all came time to adapt the Sleeping Beauty's story to film in an animated feature, the Disney staff again looked to Perrault and his French adaptation, which was called La Belle au Bois Dormant. Now, for many Disney productions in the 1960s and early 70s, the studio turned for live-action entertainment to legendary entertainer Maurice Chevalier, who performed in Search of the Castaways, Monkeys Go Home, and the Aristocats, all of which featured songs by the Sherman Brothers. But what you may not know is the Sherman family ties to Maurice Chevalier go way, way back, even farther than any of those three films. In his very first American movie, Maurice Chevalier was in a film called The Big Pond by Paramount. And in it, he performed a hit song called Living in the Sunlight, Loving in the Moonlight. And that was written by none other than Tin Pan Alley songwriter Al Sherman, the father of Richard and Robert. Chevalier's influence on Disney extended well beyond his own lifetime. And when it came to voicing Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast, actor Jerry Orbach referenced in his words, "The archetypal Frenchman from the Maurice Chevalier mold is what he wanted to portray as Lumiere." To tell us more about the making of the 1991 animated classic, let's welcome the producer of Beauty and the Beast and The Hunchback of Notre Dame, both French classics, Disney legend Don Hann. toilet.
That's beautiful. It's really beautiful. You know, as a little sidebar, backstage there are 100 amazing people in black t-shirts running this show, and they are brilliant. But right before I went on, yes, thank you to them. You have no idea what it's like back there. There's people running around. So right before I went on, somebody came running up to Becky and I and said, "Oh, by the way, right before you, a bunch of guys are going to run out with leaf blowers and toilet paper." And all you can say is, "Oh, okay."
All right.
So anyway, at least it was two-ply, so it was cleaned up easily. Hey, we went to France for Beauty and the Beast and did what the Imagineers just talked about, immersed ourselves in France. And here you see a picture of us. There's Glenn Keane on the right, Andreas Deja, a young Don Hann in the background. And we drank coffee, and we went to the Loire Valley. And any of you who have been to the Loire Valley, you know it's just breathtaking.
Spectacular.
And we visited there to immerse ourselves in everything from the atmosphere to the weather to the multiple chateaus there. And in many ways, the chateaus appeared almost literally, like when Gaston and the Beast fight at the end of the movie. That's Chaumont, that giant chateau in the Loire Valley. Here's a little clip of us walking through the Loire Valley from long, long ago on our field trip. So Glenn Keane on the right, and very much like the Imagineers talked about, there's nothing like seeing the real thing. This is Chaumont, the beautiful chateau right on the Loire River, and we steal liberally from places like this because they're the real deal, and why wouldn't you? And so, and this was a very difficult part of the trip, having to stop and picnic on the banks of the river. There was some napping involved. There's Glenn, Andreas, Tom Cito, there's me sketching. So it's a very challenging trip for all of us. There was wine involved. But we came home with pictures and images that still haunt me in a positive way. And I think when you see a film like Beauty and the Beast, or you see a castle at the parks, you really see these things and feel the authenticity of it. This is Chambord, where the roof is full of chimneys and spires, and it just felt like the right place for that fight to take place. So nothing like the real world to inspire the art of animation.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Now you made another film in France, not just The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but you filmed some other movies there.
No, that was great because we got to climb up in Notre Dame Cathedral, but there's another film, and it is a fan favorite film that was animated in France, and it's become like like the Rocky Horror Show or something. The title of the movie was a movie.
and have to replace a line of dialogue from, I assume, Pinto Colvig from an old cartoon, and it was terrifying. And at the time, I met Tony Anselmo, the voice of Donald Duck, who was doing Donald on that same show. He was sitting there as an artist drawing and doodling Donald.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And I thought to myself, I was so green, I thought, well, we don't have to draw these guys too.
Yeah.
And so it was just kind of like every month or so, and then Goof Troop came along, and after Goof Troop, about 2 or 3 years, they said, we're going to make a movie, and that's how it all started.
I'm going to pull in Kevin because you guys, Kevin is a brilliant filmmaker. You know, he's made little films like Enchanted and Tarzan. Yeah. But back then, how did you get involved in this? What were you doing?
You know what I did? I asked. I wanted to be a director, and I had moved through the studio in a lot of different positions. I was an animator, a character designer, a storyboard artist, and I said, I'd really like to direct. And they said, sorry, there's no room. They had the next 6 years planned, so I actually left the studio to follow some opportunities. And I got a phone call from the television division saying they're looking for a director for a Goofy movie. Then called the Goofy movie. But we changed it to A for some reason. So yeah, that's how it happened for me, and it all came from just asking.
I mean, that's a lesson in persistence and just asking. The whole process was not smooth. And if you want the granular details of this movie, tune into the Disney Channel and watch Not Just a Goof, which is an amazing film about how this movie came together.
The big joy is that you can see me with hair.
Yes, which is lovely, really. So those early days of this film, Jason and Bill, you guys got involved, and this next slide is the younger, but equally handsome version of you guys.
I have changed a bit.
Oh yeah,
We were all thinking that.
my hair had color back then.
Jason, how did you get into this film? What's your genesis story here?
I auditioned. They brought me in. They liked me over there at Disney. I had done some things for them before. Did Disney's Adventures with Gummy Bears, some television. Yeah, there we go. Gummy Bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. And I got to meet Kev, and I was aware of Goof Troop. And in Goof Troop, Max was voiced by the amazing late great Dana Hill. And but for the feature, I think they wanted like more of an authentic male teenage sound. And I was 18 at the time, pretty close to being still a teenager. And they explained that Max was a little bit older than 12, kind of going through puberty. So I just had always sort of like my product as I sound young naturally. I just pitched him up, give him a little voice crack here and there, the whole puberty thing, and then maybe being like his dad, every time he laughs. Yeah. And I like it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Yes.
It was meant to be. It was meant to be. Kevin, who are these people? I know the guy on the right vaguely because he just spoke. But tell me about this moment.
So we were really, really lucky with this movie because we were able to get the actors into the booth together. That happens so rarely. So whenever we had the opportunity, Bill and Jason would record. I think you did most of your sessions together.
Yeah, we shared space a whole bunch for almost 2 years.
Yeah, so we brought in Kelly and Jason, and I think you have a little story about one moment.
Yes, the amazing Kelly Martin here is Roxanne. My Roxanne. So you remember the scene where it was at the end of the film where Max confesses his he lied, and she still goes with him anyway at the end. But he gives her a little smooch, and we're doing the scene a few times, and then Kevin's like, we're all adults here. Why don't you guys, Jason, why don't you go over to Kelly's microphone, and when you kiss, why don't you just kiss for real, and we'll capture the nervous laughter afterwards. So I did, and I went over there, and it worked. I was nervous. I think she was a little nervous too, and that's the tape that you hear in the movie.
Oh, that's very sweet. And Bill, did you kiss Jason?
No, he shook hands and that's about it.
Yeah, that's appropriate. That's appropriate. Bill, I think, wow, you had a lot asked of you during this movie. And again, go watch Not Just a Goof on Disney Plus to find out. But you often sing in these movies. And I think, I remember working with you way back. And like, who knew that you guys sang and kind of beautifully, operatically almost?
Well, you don't expect Goofy to be a great singer, so I felt pretty lax about that. So, okay, whatever he does, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just came in, we've done probably 20, 30 albums over the years, and all sorts of things. Usually Christmas songs, food songs, holiday songs, and it's just being kind of silly. But of course, the first thing we did on a Goofy movie was the songs, actually. The Open Road and Nobody Else But You.
Yeah.
And, I didn't know I could sing. I wasn't even in the choir in high school.
Really?
I was not in the choir, so they didn't know I could sing. So, but they just give you songs and you're kind of expected to go in and sing the best you can, and you do what you can.
Do you ever think you get like a platinum record being the voice of a dog?
Well, it's so funny. My son's a professional musician. He's a drummer. My wife has a degree in jazz piano, and yet I'm the one with the gold record. So.
That is awkward. What a life we lead. Let's click on here to our next presentation. These are beloved people. Kevin, can you talk about, just creating this film, because you did it with an international group of animators.
We did. Because we had a much smaller budget, we had to figure out how we were going to put this movie on the screen. And one of the ways we did it was with a couple of satellite studios that we had at the time. And these are pictures from the Paris studio, actually. We started in LA. The big white room one is the Paris studio. And they animated most of the film there. And we had to figure out how I was going to direct for the first couple of months, because I was in LA and they were in Paris, and we had no internet. There was no such thing as Zoom or FaceTime or any of that. So we had to come up with this way to do it. And what I did is I set up a video camera, and I taped myself going through the storyboards, page after page after page, doing all the expressions, doing imitations of these guys. And we would put those tapes in the mail, send them to Paris. They would watch those tapes with an interpreter, and then I would get on the telephone and we'd talk about any questions they might have. And that's how we did it for the first, I'd say probably 6 months before I could get over to Paris, where I worked with them for a year on the movie.
Great artists over there, because we used them later on, pretty much every film, Hunchback, everything, and they're brilliant. Let's go on to the next one and just kind of see our kind of progress in the making of the film. Here's exactly what Kevin described, a clip from him pitching the story on video.
Place it underneath the can. The can moves in there. Like I know it's an impossible thing to do, but maybe the cartoon sort of get away with it. So we thought we'd play out the silence of the moment of the two of them waiting. And they both turn away. Like they catch each other looking at each other.
What's so funny? High dancing. Huh? Don't tell me you don't remember high dancing.
This is a real endearing thing for Goofy. It's a real nice memory.
You used to spell things out using letters like high dad or maxi or...
And extras?
Yeah, that's... No little words like...
Hasta la vista?
Like pilot.
Or I pledge allegiance?
Goofy doesn't catch himself.
Or I love you.
And he realizes that maybe he's saying the wrong thing at the wrong moment. He and his kid aren't getting along very well right now. At the moment, they're sort of grappling with this whole sort of I love you thing.
Is it soup yet?
Oh, God.
Oh, where'd you learn to do that?
Your granddad taught me that. We went to Yosemite.
You two did a lot together, huh?
Yup.
So it's something that he and his dad shared. throughout the movie, overall, we're trying to play up all these ideas that Goofy's sharing the things that he learned from his dad.
Why can't you my help?
How's the soup?
Not bad.
Goofy sort of remembering,
What?
Muffled.
and I think he feels a little bit of the pain of what's going on between he and Maxie right now. I think one of the biggest things in their relationship is communication, that they really don't have the ability to talk to each other. That perhaps they both grown a little distant, that they haven't talked a lot recently.
Well, might as well get some shut-eye. I don't think we're going anywhere tonight.
Looks down at the cup. Kind of, what's left in the bottom of it. The cup comes in. Goofy takes it, looks into it, and it says hot pack. A big step for Maxie.
Why, Maxie?
And then we're out. We see Bigfoot sleeping on the car. He loves his son more than anything in the world. There needs to be a lot of sensitivity in the end of this sequence. This is really the first point that Maxie and Goofy have come together. Don't be afraid to be subtle. It isn't a big, huge, goofy, moment of sort of flamboyant overacting. So this is really a sincere, subtle, facial expressions say much more than what they're even saying to each other. There's a whole sort of hidden text of what's going on in the scene. We're going to try to get that in the facial expressions. People don't always say what they're thinking. And I think a lot of that is.
They're having their first father-son kind of coming together, learning about each other. He's feeling more for Goofy, and Goofy's feeling for Max, even though there's a Bigfoot outside with underwear on his head.
Hi, we have been instrument shot again.
What's really interesting about watching this from this perspective, and I didn't realize this when I was making the movie, is that when I was actually pitching this scene, I hadn't seen my father in 20 years. So all of that, all of who I was as an artist in that moment was coming into the scene. And I think it really elevates some of the material to have that connection.
1000%, yeah.
People are surprised sometimes with how personal these films are. They're under a Disney umbrella, which is a large organization. But when it comes down to making this movie, and you see Kevin read that story to his staff in Paris and hear about his personal story, it becomes very human, very personal. And I feel like I probably feel the same way about this movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we all, as an actor, you have to use your personal experiences to help make the character emote. So I was thinking of father-son experiences. I have had a 5-year-old son at the time that the movie came out. And so when I was talking to Max in the beginning, I was talking to my son Austin, giving him the kind of lessons that I would like to have gotten myself, as unfortunately my dad passed away when I was 19. So I never really got to know him as an adult. And so these are probably, I was kind of emoting what I would have liked to experience. I would have loved a trip to Lake Destiny. And so I was just kind of putting that in the acting. And then as I got to know Jason much better, he became like a second son. So much so that, so much so that my son, after the movie came out, said, "Oh, is Max your brother?" I didn't think I had a brother. Messed him up for years.
Yeah, we're all still in therapy. Jason, you were the surrogate son in this movie, and certainly those relationships are very real life when you portray How did you feel about that, kind of stepping into those shoes? Because there's a lot of dramatic needs in this movie, more than any movie short had ever been made before.
Totally. And honestly, it was a challenge for me to perform Max being so mean to his dad. First off, I talk to my parents that way. I've been grounded forever. And also, like, I grew up like you guys, being a Disney fan, and I love Goofy. He's just, I recognized at the time that he was just have the earnestness of Goofy and the connectivity he wants with his son. Being 18, I didn't have a child then, not that I know of. Well, now he's 15 years old, and the connectivity I have now with the film is, my son's amazing, but he's 15. Y'all have teenagers around here, like now my love language is touch, and I still love grabbing him and kissing him on the face, but now being around his friends, I can't do that. So I recognize that scene that we just showed in the car, where it's like, okay, I have to kind of reserve my emotion for him until he figures out how to handle my love,
But that's one of the cool things I think about this movie, is that when you first watch it when you're 7, you're Max, right? And then you grow up and you're Goofy and you show it to your kid, right? So it has this generational turnover, which I think is kind of beautiful.
Well, clearly that's why y'all are here, right?
My daughter's most favorite Disney movie is the Goofy movie, and when she was coming up, I would say, yeah, but Daddy made Lion King, and anyway, years of therapy. But I was very proud of it. This Goofy movie is such a beautiful story, well told, and part of that is the music. I want you guys to talk about the music, and Kevin, you can start how that folded into this movie, and how you drafted these amazing musicians to be part of this.
Well, we knew we wanted to do something contemporary. That was sort of at the forefront, is that we were going to sort of break a little bit of the musical theater form and bring contemporary music that was around in 1995, into the film. And that really led us...
95!
That really led us to thinking about what kind of pop artist would be a part of this. And as you can probably tell, we took a bunch of big pop artists at the time and sort of made them a model. And we actually went and asked Prince if he would do the movie. Of course, we knew he wasn't going to do the movie. But we had a producer who worked with Prince at the time, and he mentioned Tevin Campbell. And I think he was 17 at the time when he recorded this, and it just sort of blew the top off the songs. We were just amazed that these were the types of songs we were going to get to put in a Goofy movie.
It really makes the movie in terms of its energy, and you guys, I mean, Billy, you stood in front of close to 20,000 people at the Hollywood Bowl. You've all heard our friends from D23 talk about their fandom of this film. And the other night, there was a screening, a couple of them, of the Goofy movie, just here at the AMC, and you guys were there, and it was like a Rocky Horror Show. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. What was that like?
Who here was there at that screening?
It was good. What was that like?
It was like, they did like Rocky Horror Picture Style, but without the fishnets.
Yeah, you come out on stage like that, and the response is like the Beatles or something. It's like, wow, it's just amazing. And as we've said in several panels we've done before, you're the ones that made it what it is today, and should have been in '95. They didn't give it a lot of PR because it was a smaller picture and everything. So the people had to find it. And now they found it.
Well, they weren't old enough to drive themselves to the movie theater at the time.
That's right. And I am so honored that this movie has gained the recognition that it should have had back in '95, because it's a great movie, thanks to our own Kevin here.
It's just amazing for me to live this process, because it wasn't the studio that made this movie what it is today. It is all of you. and your ability to go out and show your love. I mean, the internet happened, right? And you could talk about what you wanted to explore and be proud of. And that's why this movie is what it is. And I'll tell you, that's being a director, I'm sure for you guys too, it just makes me feel so proud of this thing. Thank you guys. Thanks so much.
The energy that comes off of you guys, I can't tell you how kind of humbling that is, because we're also kind of the front guys for hundreds of people that work with us. There's great voice cast, great people like Don Hann who, records us, just so many people to express our gratitude for this film. Bill, thinking again about your vocal qualities, I had been told before I came out here that you had studied opera early in your career. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I did bring a clip along of one of your earlier performances.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure if you've seen this, but it proves your skill set when it comes to classical music.
I don't think anybody's seen this, Don.
Yeah.
This was in a big tub that I got in my basement on a VHS tape. And I gave it to the guys who were doing Not Just a Goof. They tried to put it in the movie, but it didn't quite fit. So you guys get to see this today.
Okay, now